With major storylines swirling around the program, Ohio State's challenge is simple: ignore the chatter, trust the process, and stay locked in on winning a Big Ten title.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. During today's show, we will discuss if winning the Big Ten title still matters, as well as why you can trust Ryan Day to have the team ready to go this weekend. But first, anytime Ohio State is playing a game this time of year, there are going to be some storylines that get national attention. And this week, it's one that hasn't been touched on enough, but there's one that got a little attention earlier this week because Brian Hartline, there was interest from Hartline and Kentucky for him to be the new head coach of the Wildcats. He didn't get the job. He's still at Ohio State, which probably brings comfort to a lot of people. But also, not only was that a big talking point earlier in the week, tomorrow is the first day of the early signing day where Ohio State is trying to lock down the bulk of their 2026 recruiting class. That's a lot right now for a team that's trying to win a Big Ten title, and you add in the fact that it's the first Big Ten title they can't actually win since 2020. That's a lot going on for a team right now that also just came off a very emotional win over Michigan. When you think about all of that right now in a nutshell, that can be overwhelming. That can be a lot to take in. Well, we might lose the OC. Will the Buckeyes get all of their recruits to sign? Will there be some flipping going on tomorrow over the next few days? That's a lot to take in. Before this team and for Ohio State, they must always ignore the chatter. And that's something that, when you think about ignoring chatter, is easy to say, but y'all, it's hard to do. Think about what just took place last weekend. You go to Ann Arbor in a stadium that seats 110,000 people. You beat them up. You beat them down. They don't score a touchdown. The offense would have scored more if there wasn't snow in the air. And honestly, if you got better red zone trips, the Buckeyes would have scored 30 to 35 points easily. I 100% believe if you get the red zone offense going a little bit better and scoring touchdowns instead of field goals, the Buckeyes could have scored 40 on Saturday, and I don't believe that to be a false statement to make because that's how good this team is. And when you think about that, and then this upcoming weekend, it would be easy for any player on the team to fall into the trap of, man, we might lose our OC again. We know earlier in the year, it was him and Penn State. During the bye week, there was some mutual interest between the two. And now all of a sudden it's Kentucky, another G5, power conference team. This one's in the Southeastern Conference, and you know what that means as far as being the coach of Kentucky in the Southeastern Conference. That's a very prestigious conference to coach in. There are so many things to go into this week where the Buckeyes, not just players, the coaches got to dodge all this noise too. It would be very, very easy to look at any game right now as a trap game. Either the last week's, which you wouldn't call a trap game, but it could derail Ohio State from accomplishing one of the goals that they set out to accomplish this year. And one thing this team has done at a high level all year long is it something that has showed up on the field, where it did show up on the field, but it's mainly showed up off the field, away from Ohio Stadium or any stadium Ohio State's played in this year, is that they have avoided all distractions. It would have been very easy for Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate or even Ryan Day or Lorenzo Styles Jr., when players are banged up, to lean into, man, they're banged up. It's going to be very, very difficult. And you can see them starting to get in their heads because of players that might not get on the field, or maybe Smith or Tate or Styles Jr., that is, they may get in their own heads and think, man, I'm going to play in this game. I didn't play last game. I might be a little bit rusty. And they can have some head conversations that cause them to not play their game. That didn't happen. It hasn't happened all year. When guys are on the field, they're locked into the task. And now as you get closer to the game time on Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Big Fox, you're going to be looking at an Ohio State team that's going to get more attention, and more national media will be trying to talk about Ohio State. But why? They're the number one team in the land. And for some reason, the number one team in the land is not getting the attention that the number one team in the land deserves. You look back at the history of college football, and you can just go to the CFP era, or you may want to go to the BCS era to get the more true feel of where we currently are in this sport. Anytime there's a team that's the number one team in the country for the bulk of the season, they get all the attention. Oh, wait, it's Ohio State. Ohio State standard is so high. The when they're just running through teams and trying different things out, and they're experimenting even late in the season, and they are just beating down everybody. They're not getting the attention. Why? Because some may say it's what you expect from Ohio State. But still, if they're doing what you expect them to do, should you give them a lot of attention? Absolutely. The things that Ohio State is doing this year are amazing. They weren't expected by a lot of people. I am on the record of saying before the season, I didn't think Ohio State would have an undefeated regular season. On the record, I thought there would be a time in this season they might trip up and lose. I didn't know who it would be against, but it would be very, very easy for it would be very, very easy for Ohio State to look at this and say, well, with what's going on right now and the lack of attention, we can let our foot off the gas. We don't have to play our game. We don't have to go all out. We don't have to do the things that we are expected to. No, no, no. You have to 100%. In one, Ohio State hasn't allowed the lack of attention to get into their head and to mess up how they're playing. But two, the coaches have avoided all distractions too. I think one of the best things about this team this year is speaking about distractions that they're going to have to encounter this week is the fact that the coach continuity that we talked about before the season is way better than I think anybody would have projected, knowing that you lost both coordinators. You ended up promoting Billy Fessler to QB coach. You have a co-OC this year with Keenan Bailey. Brian Hartline's a full-time OC and first-time play caller. You have a co-DC with Tim Walton. And then comes Matt Patricia. And all of a sudden, this coaching staff is in sync in ways that you never saw from a Ryan Day coaching staff. And even last year's coaching staff, I don't think it was out of tune, or really before the Oregon loss was really not in tune with each other. As more of a defensive conversation. But these coaches have blocked out the distractions as well. And I think moving forward, not just for this game, regardless of the outcome of this game this weekend, which I do think Ohio State's going to win, but regardless of that, there are going to be more conversations about Ohio State. And let's say they win. They'll be on a 17-game winning streak that dates back to December 20th or 21st a year ago when Tennessee came to the shoe and got beat down. They would have beaten 8 ranked teams in that span. And I think there would be all 8 of them would be top 20 teams. I forget where Illinois was ranked when the Buckeyes played them earlier this year, but I believe all of the 8 of those games that in the Buckeyes, assuming they win this weekend, 8 of the games in their winning streak would have been against ranked teams, and they all could have been against top 20 teams. What's happening right now is it's amazing, it's rare, and it's all leaning upon a lot of the things that Ryan Day has been preaching this year. And I think it's a big reason why you, myself, and every player and coach can trust Ryan Day to have the team ready to go this weekend. This episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. I've given Omaha Steaks as a gift before, and the reaction is always the same. Excitement when the box arrives, and even bigger smiles when everything hits the grill. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, in meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. thank you all for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network while Ohio State is trying to avoid all distractions and not trying to lean into those and for them to not trust cause them to not trust the process, which has allowed Ohio State to have an undefeated regular season. Ohio State has a head coach that has shifted his philosophy. Not a philosophy that was broken, but shifted in a way and made the proper tweaks and adjustments that has Ohio State in a spot that it has not been in since 2020. That's having a shot to win a Big Ten championship. And Ryan Day, while he has pushed the right buttons all year, you can trust and believe that he's going to do it once again because Ryan Day knows the motto this week isn't different than what the message has been all season long. Just win. You don't have to try to put up style points. You don't have to try to prove a point to Kurt Signetti. That stuff's out the window. The only thing Ohio State must lean on is the fact that they have a strong defense, a strong offense, two of the best weapons on the outside of the country, the best quarterback in the country, a running back who might be the best true freshman running back in the country, and all of a sudden now you're thinking about going into a place that you're very familiar with playing. Well, actually, correction, these guys have never been there. But I know Caden Curry has played there. I've seen him play at Lucas Oil Stadium when he won a state title in high school. I don't know there are any other players on this team that have actually played a football game inside Lucas Oil Stadium. There probably are. They're just not at the top of my head. And that just goes into showing, like, yeah, they've never been there. Ryan Day's coached there a couple times. Maybe more than that. I don't know if the Buckeyes were there in 2017 or 18. 18 probably. But Day's been there. Day knows what it's like. Day knows the experience. Day can show the players around and allow them to get a great feel about what it means to be at this point in the season. Think about it. There are only two teams in the Big Ten Conference that have a shot to win a Big Ten title. They happen to be the top two teams in the country, which adds a lot of buzz and hype around this game. SEC, ACC, Big 12, the American, any conference out there, they're only going to have two teams playing and to have a shot to win a conference championship this weekend. That's huge. And that's a great honor. That's a great badge of honor that you can wear proudly and say, we're one of the final two teams standing in our conference to have a shot to win the crown. That's a huge accomplishment, especially when a lot of teams have a hangover after winning a national championship, and it seems like Ohio State went up. Where a lot of teams you see it at Ohio State or just in general in sports, they have a hangover, they slump a little bit. No, Ohio State literally went up. They are more efficient on offense. Their defense is stronger. They're coaching and making adjustments quicker in real time. This team standard has gone up. And while all that has gone up, that could be a lot of pressure for Julius Sand, a redshirt freshman quarterback, trying to lead the troops to beating Indiana this weekend. And that could be a lot of pressure for an Arvell Reese, who is getting more attention now for being potentially the best player in the NFL draft in the spring. Now, my guy Ryan Roberts, my favorite NFL draft analyst, came here on this show and said that Arvell Reese is the best player in the 2026 draft. That's how good he is. So maybe we got it here before a lot of other people got it around the country, which is okay. We do some things here about Locked on Buckeyes first before other people hop on the train. Maybe that stuff is going to get to the head of Arvell Reese. Maybe Caleb Downs is thinking about his process to get to the National Football League. There are going to be a lot of things that Ryan Day is going to have to keep players level-headed, keep guys focused, and treat this like a business trip. I mean, that's what it is. Yeah, you're playing a child's game, and it's a fun game to watch, but this is still a business trip. And in a business trip, sometimes your leader could get off kilter. Your leader cannot stay focused. I haven't seen that from Ryan Day all year. And honestly, what I said last week about Ohio State in the game against Michigan and how my feeling was about the team, I'm getting the same feel right now that this team is not looking to be tight or to be tense when they're on the field. They're still going to be loose. There's still an air of confidence, not so much an arrogance, but more of a confidence in what they're doing in their preparation, in how they are rehabbing. A lot of your stars are banged up right now. How they're rehabbing to get ready for this game. And it all goes back to Ryan Day. Think about if Ryan Day changed the tune between the Texas game to the Washington game, from the Washington game to the Illinois game, from the Illinois game to the Penn State game. If Ryan Day had a different message and his message wasn't a unified approach to every game, that could be a problem. Now, Every team is different. It could be next year Ryan Day shifts his message to say, "Oh no, no, no! Don't focus on just winning. You have to win and do X, Y, or Z." Maybe that's what works for that team. But this team this year, simply saying just win, you're not putting added pressure on your quarterback to throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. No, you're not putting pressure on your running backs to run for 150 on the ground and have 2 tuds. You're not doing any of that. All you are doing is keeping everything the same. You're keeping the main thing the main thing. You're not throwing anything else in there to muddy up the water. And that's a growth of a coach that at times people didn't think he'd be able to adapt and evolve in the ways that he has. I, my hand's up. Y'all watching right now on the YouTube, you see my hand. My hand is up because I was a person a year ago, and I actually talked about this on a show recently, on the Philip Jordan podcast, I believe, where after last year's loss to Michigan, my trust in Ryan Day was so small. And I don't want to put a percentage on it as far as 100% full trust, 0% no trust. I don't want to put a number and say it was 5% or it was 50%. I'm not going to go put a number on it. But man, my trust in Ryan Day to be able to adapt to this new age of college football was possibly the lowest it's ever been. And then all of a sudden, ran off 4 straight wins to win the CFP, win the national championship, and then this season happened. In this season happening, added more trust and more belief in Ryan Day for me because Ryan Day proved that he is the guy for the job. Ryan Day showed that he can adapt, he can adjust. He is not going to be like every other coach. He is going to continue to keep the standard high, even in this season. And I don't know if we hit on this as much as we should have, but Ohio State raised their own standard to be a champion. Where it used to be an 80% grade was a champion grade for a game. Now it's 83%. Why? Because once you're already there, what else can you do? Find ways to raise the level of play for every player out there. And if that means 80% isn't good enough, that 83% now is the bar, I love that. And let's say down the road it goes up to 84 or 84 and a half or 85%. Would that be great? Absolutely. 100% it would be great because that is what is going to need to happen for this team to continue to keep the bar high. You got Lane Kiffin going to LSU. I don't know how long he'll last down there in the Bayou. We'll see. You're going to have, unless something crazy happens, Kalani Sitake looks like he's going to go to Penn State. That's a team, when you get Kalani Sitake at Penn State, that's a team that Ohio State's going to have to battle with to win Big Ten titles. And the next time Ohio State and Penn State play, it won't be next year in the regular season. It could be in the Big Ten title game. That's going to be a different type of team. That's going to be a well-disciplined, physical team that Ohio State's going to have to play, and will be very interesting to watch those two teams battle it out in the future. You can trust Ryan Day, 100%, and it's because of his track record this year, to where Ryan Day is showing everybody that he has the ability to adjust, not just over the offseason, but to adjust in real time to make sure Ohio State stays focused, that they ignore the chatter, they trust the process, and they all stay locked in this week to win the Big Ten title. Yeah, Hartline interviewing for the Kentucky job. Yeah, that's a real thing. But Hartline's going to continue to interview for jobs until he gets a head coaching job. Also, early signing day, you knew that was going to happen a year ago. So that's something you could always be planning for. And while Ryan Day is planning for that and navigating coaching searches, he is always pushing the right buttons with these players and with these coaches to keep them focused on the task, which is winning a Big Ten title. Which makes me want to end the show asking this question. Does winning the Big Ten championship game still matter? I'll answer the question after the break. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. The seat view feature is a game changer. You literally see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you all for tapping and Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And as we get closer to the Big Ten championship game this weekend, there will be a lot of people that come out and say the Big Ten championship game is an exhibition or conference championship games don't matter anymore. And to me, that seems a little odd to say when you may have been a former player of that school, or maybe you host a show like this one, and you're trying to say, oh, yeah, we're playing these games that don't matter at all. It seems foolish to make that kind of statement because in reality, these things do matter. In the conference championship games for the college football playoff, the five highest ranked conference champions get into the playoff automatically. So that's one reason why these games still matter. Number two, you're playing a game that's going to impact your win-loss record for the season. That's another reason why this thing is still going to matter. Number three, coaches will get bonuses if they win this game. And that's not just Ryan Day and Kurt Signetti. That's all these conference championship games. The winning coaching staffs get bonuses. They're inside their contracts if they win these games. That's another reason why it matters. Exhibition games, your stats don't matter. Your stats aren't factored in. You're probably not going to play the entire time if it means a win or loss for your team. Bo Jackson could become a 1,000-yard rusher in this game this weekend. And that's going to matter. And those stats are going to factor into his total rushing stats for the season. This game still matters. Oh, here's something a little bit different. After the game against Rutgers, it was senior day. Ryan Day was talking to Jenny Taft on the field, and he made a comment saying, quote, now we're playing for hardware, end quote. And Ryan Day making that statement, you may look at the Michigan game and say, oh, no. Ain't no hardware, but we know there was a pair of gold pants. So aside from the bragging rights and the rivalry, the winner if Ohio State wins, they get a pair of gold pants. That's hardware. This weekend, it's a trophy game. That is hardware. Assuming Ohio State does what we think is going to happen, they win, they get a bye. The rest of the games we're going to play this year at hardware, baby. Bowl game, national championship. All three of those games have hardware. So, yes, this game still matters. You're going to see what Ohio State is made of in a bigger way this weekend. And you know who else it matters to? NFL scouts, NFL coaches, and executives. Now, I don't think they are going to look at Ohio State and say they have not played it and it haven't been tested. I think Saban's been tested at times, and other players on the team have been tested at times. There's been a lot of development this season on both sides of the ball. So people have been tested. But if you can see 1 versus 2, and you're an NFL scout, coach, or executive, and you could find a way to be in that stadium for this game, you know what's going to happen. You're going to see, oh, man, that man, he rose to the occasion. Oh, this dude has the goods. He has the things he thought he has, and we're going to see something out in him, or we saw something in him that we didn't know we had. Oh, yeah. The Big Ten championship game still matters. Now, at the same time, I am not a big fan of championship games, conference championship games. Not at all. No. I know it's a money grab, and I understand why the SEC like one person told me the Southeastern Conference might be the last conference to eliminate it because it is such a big money grab. I understand it. The ACC, the Big 12, all these conference championship games, they are money grabs, and I 100% understand why. But I think as conferences get so large, there will be a scenario where you have, let's say, 3 one-loss teams that have 1 loss in conference, and they are 11-1 going into after the final week of the regular season, and via the tiebreaker, one of them goes in, and then you're like, wait. So they're playing a team that is on paper the better team just by the eyeball test, but via the tiebreakers there's not. Or you could have a scenario like in the ACC, Duke is 7-5. That's their overall record. and they're in the ACC title game, then you're going to find a reason, oh, a larger conference isn't the best thing. No, 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 no. Trying to get more television sets and more living rooms. I get trying to get more eyeballs on TV. I told somebody this recently. I'll say it here to y'all. Rutgers in Maryland. I know you were losing the DC market in the New York market. What if Ohio State cut them? Would it be excuse me, the Big Ten cut them? Would it be a big deal? No. What could they do? Go to the ACC or yeah, because you're not going to try to make the Big East football conference again. Go to the ACC, you'll be just fine. If UCLA found a way to get a West Coast conference, or went back to the Pac-12, would it be a problem? No, it would not be. Why? Because you're better where you are geographically. The cross country or multiple time zone trips, I think, are bad for the sport and bad for the players overall. But you got to roll with what you got. When you have 18 teams in the conference, there will be times when you could have a 7-5. Well, not so much the Big Ten, because I don't think the Big Ten will ever be a conference that a 7-5 will be a realistic option to be in a title game, but it's possible. Title games matter, man. Trophy games will always matter. Do you get a trophy in an exhibition game or a preseason game? No. In a spring game in college football, do you get any type of trophy or hardware, if you want to use that word, after the game? No. Why? Because it doesn't matter. But this does matter. 100%. It absolutely matters. I would be cool getting away from conference championship games and proving it all in the non-conference schedule that you're going to play every single year. That'd be my cup of tea. That would be my vote. That'd be my thing that I would be pushing is no, no, no. How about you go out there and put it all on the line on the field and let us see you play the game. And then those that play in the regular season, you let us know who's going to win. Because if you keep the conferences this large, you might have to go to 10 conference games, which I am not a fan of at all. No. No. Do you with how weird the Big Ten was this year? Ohio State didn't play Nebraska. The Buckeyes didn't play Maryland. The Buckeyes didn't play USC, didn't play Oregon. There would be a year if you have a 10-game conference schedule, you're playing teams that that aren't that good. They didn't play Michigan State, and I can't remember the last time Ohio State didn't play Michigan State. You're playing teams that aren't that good. And so if you play more games in conference while keeping the 18 teams of the conference, yeah, you're gonna have a better handle on the record about who is a champion of the conference. But well, that may be what's needed to allow there to be no conference championship game. I don't know if it's ever going to go away because people in this sport are always going after the money, and since they're going after the money, this may be something that has to stay. If it stays, since it is already here, this game matters. Honestly, it's kind of alarming when people say, "Oh, this is an exhibition game." Why? Oh, because they're in the playoffs no matter what. Okay, so that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything at all. That doesn't mean the game on your schedule is an exhibition game because you're already in the playoff. No, it matters. When Ryan Day says these guys have never been to Indianapolis, they don't have a pair of gold pants. That's not just something he's saying publicly. That's probably something that's being said in that locker room because guys don't want to be at Ohio State and leave and not have a pair of gold pants, as well as also not having a ring for winning the Big Ten title. That still matters. That still means something. And being the champion in this game in the Big Ten in 2025 matters. It also matters because Indiana cares. Indiana 100% cares. Kurt Signetti he cares. Those guys on the Hoosiers, they want this game as bad as they've won any other game this year. And so if you go into the game and it doesn't matter to you, you may end up playing lesser or harder than you should have. And next thing you know, you're either getting hurt or getting embarrassed while they're lifting a trophy and celebrating on the field that you just played on with them. Let that sink in for you. The game still matters. I'll leave it there. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big Ten. Craig Sheeman is a guy that pumps up the best conference in the sport and discusses the rivalries to the championship and everything in between. You can find Locked On Big Ten and Locked On Buckeyes on YouTube or wherever you listen to your fine podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow me on any social media platform or jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes on your Tuesday. We'll see you next time.